Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Key of Shadow, and today we're going to be talking about a legend of a series in the world of anime and manga. Something that I've been holding off on talking about because I didn't think I was qualified to talk about it. But if I'm doing it in this style where I'm only talking about each part individually in their own separate video, then I believe I can say at least something. This is going to be the start of a little mini-series where I talk about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Now, how did I get into JoJo's Bizarre Adventure? I got into it around the period where the only legal way for me to watch anime was through Toonami. It was a special night for me. I'd set aside plans so that I could watch Toonami. Then I saw this show was coming up in the lineup. I look at it and think, this looks absolutely stupid, I'm not going to waste my time on it. And I tell Skylar about this, who had apparently been following the series for quite some time. I was skeptical at first because he's the kind of person that would get into really bizarre, really weird shows that didn't really have any semblance of depth. So when he said, okay, I'll leave you alone after you watch 3 episodes, I'm like, fine, fuck it, it's only 3 episodes. 3 episodes after I start, I'm instantly hooked by this. And little did I know that I was getting into a fucking anthology following not just a single protagonist, but an entire bloodline. I was in for a hell of a ride when I started this series, and I'm glad that I got on the ride when I did, because this is by far, or one of, if not, my favorite anime and manga of all time. Mostly anime because, my god, trying to read the manga past part 3 it's a hassle. Now that we've gotten past how I started JoJo, let's talk about Phantom Blood, Part 1, Phantom Blood, with a little more depth. Now, this is the shortest of the JoJo parts, ranging at about only 9 episodes. We're talking anime. I'm not sure how many chapters it was, but this is the shortest of the currently 8 parts of JoJo. Without further ado, let's get started talking about the plot of Phantom Blood. Our story takes place in the mid to late 1800s in England. Our main protagonist is Jonathan Joestar, the first JoJo and the one that kickstarts the Joestar family bloodline throughout the rest of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Now, on the surface, he may seem like just a spoiled rich kid born with a silver spoon in his mouth. And to an extent, that is exactly what he is at the start, before shit hits the fan. But, to be fair, some shit already did hit the fan, because not that long after being born, Jonathan Joestar's mother ends up dying in a carriage accident. It's that same carriage accident that ends up setting the wheels of fate to turn the way they do, because that is the day that sets the fate of another child, Dio Brando, who, after his father dies about 12 years after the events of that carriage accident, he is adopted by Jonathan's father, George, on a favor because George assumed that Ed Dario was at the accident site in order to save him, when in reality he was only there to try and loot the bodies because he assumed that everyone in the accident was dead. From day one of entering the Joestar residence, Dio decides to make Jonathan's life a living hell in order for him to get the Joestar fortune. To make a short story significantly shorter, Dio is caught in the act of a 7-year scheme to try and poison George. He kills George, becomes a vampire, has a fight with Jonathan that then results in the burning down of the Joestar residence, is presumed dead but isn't actually dead. Jonathan trains in Hamon. He goes to fight Dio again at his castle. Dio is once again presumed dead after the fight at the castle. Dio is actually alive, but only as a head in a jar. He follows Jonathan onto his honeymoon cruise to America, tries to take Jonathan's body, but as a result, the ship sinks with both Jonathan and Dio's head. Arena escapes with a baby, but is also pregnant with the soon-to-be protagonist of Part 2. And the next generation of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is then set up, which we will cover that in the video for Part 2, Battle Tendency. That's essentially how Part 1 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure goes down. Now, obviously, I did leave out a lot, and I mean a lot of details, while still spoiling it, but still, I believe that if you want to get the full details, the full scope of Part 1, you will either need to watch the first 9 episodes of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, or simply read the manga for Phantom Blood. While Okay, some may say, well, you spoiled it, so there's no point in me reading or watching it. There are a lot of details that are missing that end up being important later on. Now, obviously, I do recommend JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I do to anyone. And Phantom Blood is not a bad place to start. I mean, it was the original part, after all. It is the first part of the entire series. But people also say that it is one of the most boring or the most anticlimactic, I guess, of the eight parts of JoJo that are currently out. But personally, I still like Phantom Blood. Sure, it's not as exciting as, say, Part 3, Part 4, or Part 5, which we'll get to those in a later video. But I still believe that as a beginning point of the series, it is a strong beginning point. Even Araki himself, I believe he said that, yeah, I can understand that people don't like Part 1. Jonathan is kind of boring in the grand scheme of things, and the whole part as a whole is kind of meh. I think he said that. I might be remembering that wrong. But it's still a good part to get into. Although that might just be my bias talking because Phantom Blood was the part that I started on. It was the part that got me going in this fucking roller coaster that is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. But if you do in fact start with Part 1, it ends up making things like Part 2 and 3 have a little bit more weight to it. Especially Part 3 because, you know, I'm not going to say that here because that it will be technically spoilers for, I suppose, the beginning plot of Stardust Crusaders, as well as a spoiler for when I eventually do my Part 3 video. But I can see why there are some people that would be against starting JoJo, especially starting from Phantom Blood. People say Jonathan is a boring protagonist. He's the weakest of the JoJos. It's a really short part, so not a lot happens in it. Blah, 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 blah. And I can understand that feeling. I can understand the argument. I personally kind of feel the same way in the case of it's not as interesting as the likes of parts 2, 3, 4, 5, and onward. Stopping at Part 5 at that point because as of right now, Part 5 is what is being animated currently. Part 5's anime is not finished yet, so I will not be able to make a video on it unless they somehow jump on the production and like crazy, or I start reading the manga, which is going to be a hassle because, again, it's hard to read past Part 3 without some kind of bullshit. With all that being said, what did you guys think? At least what did you think of my shitty little synopsis of the series? Did I convince you to start watching or reading Phantom Blood, or at the very least did I convince you to start watching or reading JoJo as a whole? Remember, you don't have to start with Phantom Blood. You could start with any part of JoJo. Like, any part could be your first. But I personally recommend you start from the beginning. That you start from Part 1, Phantom Blood. But like I said, you don't have to. Did I somehow not convince you? Because I won't lie. I will not be surprised if I didn't convince you to start watching or reading. Again, let me know why in the comments below. This has been the Key of Shadow. Remember, JoJo is fucking amazing. And I will see you guys in the next video. Catch you later.